It's about that time, isn't it? Yeah, indeed. FTG History Part 5. It is what is up till this point known as the last part of this. Or is it? This part will mostly contain what is known as our BG3 section, with mentions of some other stuff as well. Keep in mind that this is by no means a deep dive into the BG3 section as a whole, and is most likely very different from the other parts so far. In all other parts, I've been mostly in control of everything, either by people dumping the entire community on me or me retaking it by power again. But this time was the first time me sharing my powers with others actually paid off. So I only ran the show for the first couple of months, and consider our performance by then was 1/10 of what it later became. It really says something about me, doesn't it? But you can see a huge part of this as a review from an observer. Well, this intro has gone on for long enough anyways, so let's get it started. But first... So you guys know all those knives I've unboxed over the years? What most of you probably don't know is that I still have a majority of them, and have been planning to use them in a huge giveaway in this video. I've made a wheel that has all the names of the members from the past, present, and the future. Well, not really from the future, but you get it. So whoever the wheel lands on gets it all. Yes, you heard right. I mean, who can forget people like Serene Koala, Trip Out, Mystery Relevant, Chaos Power? You probably don't remember them, but I do, and that's all that matters. Stay tuned for the fucking wheel, yeah? And see who wins it all, yeah? Being a casual and half inactive community that plays turn-based map simulator games, and going on to being very active to the point where you need a weekly schedule and weekly meetings just to, keep the normal day-to-day activities to work, it ain't easy for anybody. The start we had planned for so long was actually very confusing as usual. When BG3 came out, there was a lot of hassle of getting a server and recruiting all those long lost members. There was also many former members that promised to return to BG3 but never did so. I mean, Fonzie, we're still waiting. Where are you at, bro? As mentioned in the previous part, a lot of people had already demanded that we were gonna be called 42CDO and we were gonna have a point-based activity ranking system, whatever they're called. Sounds cool and all that, but it's a bitch to take care of. Originally, I had plans that we were going to be called FTG, and we were going to have a made-up rank system based on memes within our community. It would have been great for all our current and old members at the time, but I suppose the new members would have found it confusing. A whole staff had to be implemented to run things and stuff like that, and obviously there was a lot of mistakes made early on, because nobody other than Greedy Chris were interested in leading, so I had to handpick people, and I had to pick from people I knew that, this person was good back in the days, maybe they will be good now. But then they weren't ready to be active on the scale we were expected to be active all of a sudden. This also meant that our community and Discord were open for recruitment again. Naturally, I was a bit worried about the staff and the moderators, because many of them had actually not seen action in many years, or not at all, so they were kinda used to our safe environment in here, of barely seeing new people join, and usually when issues did happen, they were dealt with by me, mainly. The start of BG3 was shaky to say the least. BG3 itself was at launch not very stable, and it lacked a lot of things, like admin commands and such things. And it was kind of tricky to get a server to run properly. It was hard to switch maps, and you had to learn all the console commands to put on the right game mode. And it's also something that wasn't really in our control either, so it was a little bit frustrating to say the least. There was also certain people who thought we could just get a plugin and it would fix the entire server, but it's never that simple. There was also notable people like Greedy Chris, who thought we should always be ahead of things, and often said in the beginning that we were lagging behind and not keeping up with the other clans. Well, this is often something that I was met with right after coming home from work. It was like, oh, Skill, we need to install these 20 plugins and it will fix everything. And it's like, The general environment at the start of BG3 wasn't that different from BG2 that we had left behind many years prior. The most way it was different was that there was a lot more cooperation between the clans and such. The clans other than us were 29th, 66th, 12th, 58th, 5th CT and B Blue. 29th, 66th and B Blue, I don't think I have to explain since you already know who they are. 12th was led by some guy called Devil May Cry, and they were a line battle clan in BG2 as well. I think it was after our time or something like that. 58 I think were Ninja Tiger's clan, and at first they were a decent sized line battle clan, but they kinda faded away, and then some of them reappeared in CN. It's kinda cloudy how that went down, but you know, go ask them or something, yeah. 5th CT was led by a guy called Crippled Fetus, and he was one of the original founders of 29th. Him and another guy called Swarf actually used to upload BG2 history videos where they sometimes trash talked us and say that they were the reason we were made, we were just a fragment of them and blah blah blah. Like, you know, very tough stuff, yeah. Crippled Fetus himself never talked to me in BG2 at all, but in BG3 when I joined their server, he was all of a sudden talking to me as if we were buddies or something and had known each other for many years. 5th CT also never took part in any public events, such as the multi-clan, and they very rarely faced other clans in general, but we get to that in a bit. The 5th CT eventually disbanded and reformed as the 4th RF, and after that they finally started involving themselves in the BG3 community. Good job, guys! In the beginning of BG3, 42CDO's numbers were mostly made up from veteran members that we had recruited back. But over the course of a few months, many of these veteran players actually went inactive, and they were slowly replaced by newer members. I suppose most of them weren't super thrilled about BG3 because in the beginning, technically it was a lot like BG2. Yeah. The BG3 section we had though did spawn a surge of new members joining us between 2019 and 2021, something we had not seen in a long time. Originally, I wanted to have a complicated application system where people with private Steam profiles would not be allowed, but this was 2019, so applications were super simplified and there was barely any requirements, and almost everybody got accepted. It was horrible, yeah. This also brought in many interesting new people like Steve, Ryan, Two Steps from Hell, Random Romain, Boss, Random Monk, Vortbeholter, Plexi, Panda, Como Ruler, Soul, Amaterasu, Gravy, Psych, Hellfire, Gecko, Sheepy, Faker, Jack X, Kimmel, Force, Vixka, and many more. Some still with us, and some are gone, yeah. And I'm sorry if I'm forgetting anybody here, because, you know, I can't have a list where I name drop you all, because it would make the video 2 hours longer. But if it makes you guys feel better, you can keep in mind that I was a tester for BG3, and I'm not even mentioned in the credits, yeah. Baptized in Blood and Wraith also made a return as members after leaving in 2011, which must be some kind of rejoin record or some shit like that. Like, give them a medal or something. You know, like, Joker, go interview them, hurry. There was also a lot of members from other clans that joined our community but not our BG3 section, simply to be a part of us. BG3 also saw the return of people like Cookie and other people that had been part of us at some point but then gone inactive. And a lot of people actually took up leadership roles after a while, and even half-high roles. That it was very appreciated, because 5 years earlier it was like you ask somebody, hey, you wanna help out? And they're like, no. The strength that we had that other BG3 clans lacked was that we had been established and active since 2010. Many other clans, they went fully inactive and disbanded after BG2, but we managed to remain as a community over the years. This also early on made our Discord sort of a hangout where a lot of clans members, they would come in and hang out with us because we were always there. We also had a couple of incidents early on with former members who tried to rejoin despite being banned, former members who played in public line battles and very well know the rules but broke them anyway and got mad when they got slayed. How about you stop scamming kids in Gary's mod numbers? Fucking get a job or something, yeah. And of course there was also Yo the Pro, who tried to rejoin and become the big boss again. If you remember the last part, I had blocked him since our last encounter, so he actually messaged me through another former member to try and contact me. Yo then came in on our Discord, and he was very critical towards pretty much anything that we had done. And many of the staff members at this point, you have to keep in mind, they were part of Joe's weekly D&D game, or he was their dungeon dominatrix master. So many of them, they were obviously afraid to like talk against him. So when he was sitting there trash talking us, many of them were just like, oh. And it was kind of annoying to be the only one to like talk back to him and be like, you know, bitch, where the fuck have you been the past couple of years? But the others, they just went into their submissive D&D roles and didn't talk back. But at this point, Joe had left us twice, never cared what we had done to carry on FTG in his absence. So, you know, to me at this point, his words, they kind of lose their importance, because he furthermore only played in like one multi-clan line battle, and when he was denied admin, he left. Good guy, yeah, good guy. The multi-clan line battles were started kind of early on, and they ran for the entire span of BG3's activity. They still happen every now and then, and we actually still attend them on very rare occasions. And these line battles are also, they're more based on how the events were in Napoleonic Wars, like you have multiple lines on each side all fighting with each other against the others, kind of thing. And it was very well balanced in the beginning of BG3, but eventually it was kind of like us against the rest of the community many times, yeah. And a little fun fact some of you might remember is when we were gonna have the first multi-clan line battle, me and Stargate spent the whole day messaging old members and former members to get enough people for this multi-clan, because we needed to have 20 plus or some shit, they told us. So when we had managed to get a decent amount of people and were ready to join the server, it was discovered that I had actually gotten the dates mixed up, and it was actually a whole week until the multi-clan was going to take place the first time. And the popularity of the multi-clan line battles also kind of went up and down over the years, and I always found them nice, because the whole community got together. Like, we all came in there on Sundays and was like, what's up guys? I mean, it didn't really happen in BG2, like nobody gave a fuck. I know most people have very mixed feelings about the multi-clan line battles, because there was a lot of commander aiming. I mean, it's safe to assume that Stargate's probably died like 25 times in one event, yeah. No, but there was a lot of commander sniping and other random shit that happened. Some clans had certain people banned, so they had to like attend on an alt account just because they refused to unban this certain person, like. And we all know it's Ryan we're talking about, yeah, give him an upload or something, give him some flowers. Our line battle skills went from being almost non-existent to getting first place in line battle tournaments. We also, in our track record, managed to beat every clan in line battle as well. Even 5th CT, who only challenged us to a line battle, and they stated that we were the only real line battle clan. They wanted to only face us and none of the others. But judging from how dramatically 5th CT went down, it's safe to assume that we can take his words with a grain of salt, or sugar if you prefer that. The main thing that changed in our line battle tactics was that we went from not using group fire for a lot of years to starting to use group fire. And it's the thing when you have group 1 and 2, and when the first half stops, then they fire, and then they move, and then the second half stops, and then they fire and they move. If this is synchronized perfectly, you can have a volley go off every few seconds. It can cut down an enemy line pretty fast. If you all aim, that is. At least that's how group fire works in theory, but I'm actually a group fire denier, yeah. We're like the biggest movement in BG3, yeah. There was actually a certain line battle where we switched back and forth between single fire and group fire, and in a meeting afterwards it was decided that we should use group fire whenever we can, because there were two very deciding rounds where group fire saved us. I pointed out in this meeting that there was actually also 3 deciding rounds when our single fire dominated the enemy's group fire. But this was one of those rare moments in Earth's history when time stood still for everybody but me, so unfortunately this was missed. Yeah, my argument was ignored, yeah. But despite that I don't believe in group fire, like some of you others do, it's unquestionable that it has actually saved us in many line battles since it was implemented. So you can count this as the first time, you know, that I'm in the wrong, so I mean, take out your pens, take some notes and shit. The BGU scrims were kind of a big deal. To be honest, they never meant much for me in general. And I already had a team in BG2, and that was the least fun I had there as well. But with our roster being large in BG3 meant that we at some point had 4 active scrim teams taking part in BGU. And in BG2 it was laid out that Team 1 was the team that had all the good players, and Team 2 had the not so good players and the players that often lagged out or some shit like that. But in BG3 this was overhauled for the better, I think. Team 1 was reserved for the best players we had, and it was the team that won us 7 BGU championships and 4 second places. Team 2 was reserved for players that were good but maybe couldn't commit to being in Team 1 fully, if you know what I mean. Like, they were good, but they worked evening shifts at some Walmart or something, I don't know. Team 3 was the Rat team, and it was run by Hellfire. The Rat team played mostly to have fun and was more about being casual, and Team 4 was the Meme team, and it was sometimes meant to be a serious team that trained low-skilled players. Scrim teams are often run by staff, but sometimes other members voluntarily ran teams and later became staff as a result because they had run their team well and stuff like that. Some other clans like 66th and 29th had around 2 to 3 scrim teams each at most. So this means that there was obviously a lot more teams facing each other, and it was a bigger deal than BG2 and their rigged scrim tournaments, yeah. Two Steps from Hell, who was the main founder of 66th and a former member of ours in BG2 named Tracker, reached out to us at some point. Spoke about kinda a 42CDO and 66th merge. From how we understood it, the 66th and their staff had already discussed this and wanted to join our Discord and set up some kind of section but still be a different clan in BG3, and they were gonna be part of our community. It sounded very confusing when Two Steps and Sparky told us this and instantly wanted to have this meeting within an hour. Something felt very off about this, so we delayed the meeting so all the 66 staff could attend. And upon joining the meeting it was kinda clear that 66 was not in full agreement on this, and they were actually in the middle of an argument about this, and it was a very confusing meeting where the only really thing we settled on was that in sometime in the future we were gonna half join forces in Bannerlord, like some of them were gonna join us, and the thing was the 66 already had their own like Bannerlord thingy, so some of them were gonna join that. It was a very confusing meeting. Two Steps joined us after this meeting and went on to recruit a lot of people for us in the coming weeks, and then eventually went inactive a few months later, but popped up every now and then and took part of the events. We did for a while have joint trainings with 66, and to be honest, it was pretty fun times. But after a while, a lot of the FTG members found it to be very toxic, so eventually we stopped having these joint trainings. But if you ask me, I think it was good times for the most part, yeah. This screenshot right here is kind of important because it was posted on the 15th of October, and I think most of us can agree that this is when the community started to enter a golden age under the leadership of Stargate. Even though most of it happened after the Bannerlord section was scrapped, it's safe to say that it had started here already. And you can say and feel however you want about Stargate, but there is no denying that our successes in BG3 and where our community is today is mostly part thanks to him and the decisions he made. Like I stated before, I didn't have a plan, I had no grand idea to improve anything, and that's what Stargate did. He took the risks I didn't take. I very often have to correct people on this because they refer to our BG3 section as mine, but I tell them that it's Stargate's. What I did for 42CDO in BG3 is a laughable excuse in comparison to what Stargate did. Even early on, before coming a colonel, Stargate had a lot of say in the meetings that we had and often stood for a majority of the talking and coming up with suggestions. I mean, this is a pretty good guy. It was also in December of 2019 that we talked about a huge community meetup. In the early brainstorming we were gonna meet in the Netherlands or London. London seemed to be most suited for the people living in the States that were traveling to Europe, you know, cheap flights and all that. We had even looked into potential places that we could rent and live at for a few days. And being that there was many of us that was gonna attend this, the cost for everybody would be overall cheaper. These plans were eventually put on hold though, as 2020 brought COVID and That meant that all means of travel was impossible. We also around this time got the Conan section, and we still have it to this day. It's run by our boy May, and even though none of us really play Conan, it's still a successful section, and it's very active as well, from what I understand. Yeah. Haven't been on the server in a while. Yeah. I think we are ready to talk about the major disaster that is known as Bannerlord. As I mentioned back in FTG History Part 3, the current end goal for us was holding out as a community was not for BG3, it was for Bannerlord. A game that in trailers looked like a lot like Warband and showed off massive multiplayer siege battles where the possibilities seemed endless. We should have looked at the signs early on and known that this was another Titanic of games that was about to crash into the hype iceberg, yeah. Unfortunately, unlike the BG3 section, the Bannerlord section was actually heavily planned, and multiple of us spent hours making negotiations, having meetings. Stargate alone spent many hours talking to other BG3 clans, bringing them into our fold. We even had a grand meeting with all these people, and it's probably the biggest meeting we ever hosted. It was regarding all the details of the Bannerlord section was discussed. We had donations collected towards the Bannerlord servers that we were gonna have. We had up to $350 worth of donations. We also had probably the biggest and most complicated ranking system planned. It was split into 4 different branches that after you got recruited you could pick what branch you wanted to continue in. The siege engineers were to be led by the siege master, and their main focus would be to control the siege machines during siege battles. Infantry, which are led by the foot marshal, and they would be the main infantry. Archers would be led by the master ranger, and they would be the main archer dudes, yeah. Cavalry would be led by the knight marshal, and they would be the main horse rider dudes that would annoy the shit out of everybody, yeah. Each of these branches would have had different honors members could be awarded after their performance during battles. Above the branches there would be 4 lords, and above them would be 2 dukes, and above them all would be the king. Most of these ranks were actually assigned already, and here are some screenshots showing the planned positions for everybody. As you can see, this is all well planned and discussed to make it as good as possible, and I'm sure if it would have happened it would potentially have been our greatest section ever. But when Bannerlord released, it did not have community server support. What this means is that you could not buy a server or own anything that you could use to make events happen, nowhere to recruit people. In case you are curious, it's been more than 2 years and there's still no community server support. Bannerlord did unfortunately focus more on single player elements of the game. The multiplayer does feature commander battles, however, and a competitive mode much like CSGO. It was clear, however, that this was not the game we had all been waiting for all these years. It was a letdown on a massive scale. The section was put on hold, and only really Abbers was running things every week where we would join a server and see who got the most kills. Some of the members did play the competitive mode for a while and actually ended up randomly facing the 5th FKI and won over them. It's probably the only notable thing that happened in Bannerlord. What now became the problem is that a lot of people had left their BG3 role in preparation for Bannerlord, as it was gonna be hard to be leadership in both. The original plan was that when Bannerlord was released we were slowly gonna move away from BG3. Instead, now we had to integrate people back into the ranks at fitting places again. And this is where things got weird. The BG3 staff, they called me into a meeting and they wanted me to lead it all. I was kinda confused by this since I had barely done anything for the BG3 section. But they were convinced, they said, even though only one of them was talking. Stargate, however, wanted his old spot back. From what I was told, Stargate had been told that the BG staff had chosen me, and Stargate was gonna have some grand confrontation with me or something. This never happened though, and Stargate retook his spot as colonel and went to lead us into greatness. However, it's noticeable that Stargate felt less appreciated after this, and there was a bunch of members that noticed this and actually called me into a secret meeting about it. They wanted us to in some way prove to Stargate that we appreciated him and such, and asked me for ideas. It came down to the biggest video project I would have done so far. It was gonna be a Garry's Mod video on the map CS Melita. The script for this was only about 100 rows long, and I don't recall exactly the ideas we brainstormed into this, but I do remember some of the things. The basic plot was that Frankish Empire had taken over the world and all the BG3 clans except for Tusidio. We were holding out on Melita, which was our last holdout. Both 29th and 66th and other random lines that we have encountered through our history made an appearance as enemy lines, firing endless volleys on the building we were in. Hellfire would be the main narrator, and it would kind of follow certain people and groups around and make sure that they were all represented. Steve, Morrowind, and Hellfire would kinda be the main characters, but it would also follow many of the Hellfires in general. The Vodka Club was planned to be there, and they were planned to be speaking Russian and have English subtitles. Steve and Morrowind would be trying to get the other staff in to help rally the troops. Steve was planned to have a video call with me while I was smoking, and this is a video I still have recorded on my phone from back then. Slider was meant to make an appearance in a balloon and advertise his piss-up game that he always was talking about. Some random banter would happen between Slider and Caveman Jimmy before Slider's balloon was shot down. And despite all the other staff being summoned, we would still be losing, and then a huge Stargate would appear in the skybox and start shooting lightning and fire down on our enemies, and eventually the Stargate would warp everything back to normal, as if we were never attacked. We would all be chillin', and everything would be fine, and text would be displayed saying, "Thanks, Stargate." Keep in mind as well that this is what I recall from the script, and it very much based on my memory, and things may have turned out different and stuff like that. You never know. And now you're probably thinking, hey, why wasn't this video made? The answer is pretty simple, so let me explain. On the 6th of June 2020, all my projects for FTG was cancelled. And yes, you know what this is about, don't you? This is what you all been fucking waiting for, isn't it? You're all here ready and waiting. That's right, it's time again to talk about the fucking drama. And this isn't just any fucking drama. This is the biggest fucking drama we ever fucking had. Yes, indeed. This is the part where I'm gonna talk about the whole Mad Shark drama. Something for you all to keep in mind though is that things between me and Mad Shark are fine. He even knows very well that I'm gonna be talking about this in the video. Most of you will probably be shocked to know that 2 months ago we were in a voice chat discussing all of this. I'd actually like to thank him for providing me with additional information and details that I did not even know about. Since I had single-handedly ended the last drama in 2014, we had grown very comfortable in our position. We had of course had minor dramas like Greedy Chris leaving for the 8th time among other things, but nobody in their minds would suspect that something big was coming, that we were to once more be tested, but not just by anybody, but by ourselves. I say that because despite having the advantages in our structure as a community, we also happen to have a lot of weaknesses. Looking at us from an outsider's perspective, this can probably be hard to spot. A drama like the one we had could have been over in mere moments, however it lasted almost 3 months, and nearly tore the whole community apart, at least on several occasions. I think we all in staff can agree that the amount of ultimatums that were thrown around during the BG3 time was probably at its peak during this drama. For me, up until this point, I have only had a few times where I felt like leaving, but it's just been minorly and lasted for a few days. This one hit different though. I still feel it to this day. It's hard to exactly put down when this drama started. Mad Shark had done minor things in the past. He had aimed for commanders in line battles, but other than that he was a good and loyal member and had even been promoted to moderator by myself. To say the least, he was far from who I thought were gonna cause the drama that unfolded. There was at least several occasions leading up to this drama that I sensed something was a bit off. It began lightly, how Mad Shark was going at people randomly and going at certain things in our community, namely the former Not Safe for Work channel and the private channels. In the beginning I kinda shrugged these things off, but As he started going at it more intensely and he started rallying people to his cause and began using disruptive behaviors in channels and refusing to stop when told, I already knew we had to take action. Had he been banned at this point, the drama would most likely been a lot smaller, and I suspect even that had he asked to be unbanned later on, it most likely would have been approved by the majority, and he would still probably be a veteran to this day. The big mistake I did was listening to others in staff who were against such harsh punishments. As far as I knew, it seemed like nobody was on my side in this. It was also at this point when I was restricted from banning Madshark and anybody else on the Discord. It was at least the wishes from some in the staff. In the middle of all of this, when talking to Lapcha, he seemed to understand what was going on. He was under the impression that since rules existed for the BG3 section, it seemingly shielded the BG3 section from the drama, and that certain people was trying to not get in the crossfire of this. Without reason, he deleted the BG3 rules and brought up in the leadership channels something about that we needed to implement rules for the whole community. He had openly in a BG3 pug spoken out to other clans about the toxic troll members that we had allowed in. Stargate had been well aware of this and confronted him about it. This caused Lapcha to 100% go at Stargate personally for about 30 minutes before leaving. I realized then that it was a mistake to ask Lapcha about this. This whole thing left people kind of in shock, and especially Stargate, which is kind of understandable. We did begin to work on general rules for the whole community, something we hadn't had in many years. The rules were obviously not enough, as people found ways to bend the rules, and they said that the rules were not specific enough. They didn't, for example, say what counted as spam and what didn't, and if somebody actually feels like testing these things, I suggest, getting a hobby or something. To me at this point, it was very clear that they were just trying to go at me. It all came down to the day when Madshark's moderator was removed. It started seemingly like a calm morning. I woke up and looked at the Discord. At this point nothing was going on yet, so I went on the bus as usual. When I looked in the welcome channel, it was all of a sudden being spammed by Sonic pictures by Madshark, Clayton and Racetrack. At this point I was 100% convinced that they had planned to do this against me, because at first when I had looked there was nothing. They had simply been waiting for me to wake up. I went in with 100% aggression, of course, but as expected they were ignoring me, instead making fun of the whole situation, because they were also very well aware that I wasn't allowed to ban them. I mean, who leaked that? Fucking give me their names, yeah? How they knew it was actually a bit stunning for me. Being that I was restricted from banning either of these, I messaged Stargate on Messenger, since this was his wishes and this was his friends, and it's probably the point where he should step in and say something, because I had been restricted, However, Stargate did not see the situation like I did, and instead he deleted me on Facebook. A few days before this happened, I had actually brought up to Stargate my concerns about new members joining and Madshark immediately going at them for having an anime avatar or some shit like that. That Stargate should probably talk to Madshark about it. Instead, Stargate removed Madshark's permissions to see the welcome channel. However, when Madshark found this out, he actually thought it was I who did it, which means the whole situation could have been avoided very smoothly. Afterwards, though, the messages in the welcome channel were deleted. The day was actually far from over, however, because when I came home, the Sonic spam had started again. I was still very confused over why in particular Sonic pictures. So after talking things over with other people, it was clear that they were tired of Faker posting Sonic pictures every now and then. I opened a DM with Faker and asked him to stop, and he said yes. While I was doing this, Madshark was spamming the same 3 pictures in different channels. And this is where I finally understood the whole thing. He was doing this to prove some kind of point that the Sonic pictures were annoying. Without any real hesitation, I removed his moderator role. Although it would seem that I was the only one that wanted this, you would actually be wrong, as I was well aware that some kind of scheme in the background was going on to keep him at his position. Here we had a moderator who had a problem with a 13-year-old posting and took it to the extreme to prove simply his own point to others that it was annoying. Although it's understandable, it's definitely not acceptable. It wasn't until further investigating that I actually found out that Madshark had actually tried to reason with Faker together on multiple occasions about the Sonic pictures, but eventually it drifted into what he did. At first, Madshark actually accepted the fact that his moderator was revoked, although not happy about it, obviously. I got told off majorly for doing this, however, and there was a fear that other moderators would be revoked as well. This led me to have a talk with Clayton, who was a moderator at the time. Judging from Clayton's reactions to what I was saying, it was very clear that whatever I said to Clayton would reach Madshark. To prove this, I said a very well chosen line. I said, making Madshark moderator to begin with was a big mistake. However, this was translated to Madshark as making Madshark moderator was always a mistake. Kinda the same meaning, but interesting that it got changed. Maybe somebody can elaborate on this, yeah. This put Madshark into a rage, where this line was repeated by him and others, and they demanded suddenly that I was gonna have a talk with him. I knew already that this was a trap and planned to ignore it. Some of the staff were pretty much begging me to talk with him. Our first talk encounter was very short, as I thought he wanted to do this on voice, but when he refused to go on voice, I actually refused to type. This caused Madshark and others to spam the Discord with multiple messages about what I had said about giving him moderator. We were having a BG3 match at the time, so some people even had to join Spec just to deal with it. I was sure this would cause the others to open their eyes more about the situation. Madshark was flying a flag claiming I had personal reasons behind removing his moderator, while he was riding his own personal feelings as a horse. It's a situation clear as day of what's going on, you know. However, I was again blamed for not talking to him. I brought up again that the fact that he didn't want to go on voice, that he wanted to do it on text. Because, let's be real here, this was nothing more than a setup. Between the 4th and 5th of June, I sent Madshark a long message detailing a few things. What most people don't know, since I knew this was a trap, I had carefully picked what to type. It was very clear, however, now years later, that I underestimated the outcome, so to speak. Madshark immediately started debating the message, and I told him that I was not looking to debate any of the details that I had written. A few hours into the night he tried to push me into getting a reply, but it was cut short with the fact that I had to go to sleep. These were actually the last messages we had exchanged in DMs until July. The whole 5th of June was a bit too quiet, which usually is a bad sign. So I brought some staff into a meeting. I said that if this conflict continued, I was gonna take a break from FTG, literally leave the Discord. They were protesting about this, and they said that, oh, but you and Madshark have settled things. The whole day has been so quiet, it's a proof of that. Oh, it sure was, wasn't it? On the 6th of June was the first day I had really had time to play the new ESO DLC that had been out for a couple of days. Random meetings about the ongoing conflict had kept me busy. Cookie was in the channel with me as well, and as soon as Clayton joined and started talking about what they had done in the welcome channel was not that bad, being that I knew that things had started, I told him to shut up. There was a few moments of calm before Abbers came in and alerted me about the ongoing attack. So when I alt-tabbed out, I was greeted with the meme channel being spammed with memes about me, Panda, other staff members. A huge focus on our private channels as well. It was all very ridiculing memes and very focused on putting me in a bad light and calling me out for being a simp. In FTG private, Madshark had put some long message that I actually deleted at some point, so I can't find it anymore yet. But it was a list of demands and changes for the community, as well as multiple lines calling me out, but also say that they didn't want to have me removed. Attached to the message was a file named Skill Debunked. Although there was clearly some staff that wanted to take an immediate action, there was also some that didn't say a word. To me, this seemed like clearly some people knew about this and simply chose to not take action. At this point, I had had more than enough than I ever had before. I announced in a rushed staff meeting that I was gonna go forward with taking my break and leaving the Discord. Abbers and Cookie are the only voices I remember speaking out against this, trying to reason with me, but I transferred ownership to Cookie and left. To put you all into a bit of a perspective here, the people who were spamming the meme channel were for the most part Mad Shark's real life friends, and people he had brought in such as Jason. Jason should not been given veteran back or even allowed to rejoin due to the drama he was involved with, described in FTG History Part 3. Many other were clan guests from 66, 29, and other people that weren't really relevant to FTG at all. I found out 2 years later that when Clayton first joined in, he was actually recording my reaction to all of this. The document Mad Shark had attached to this message called Skill Debunked was nothing more than a huge shitpost. As far as I know, very few people did actually read this document, however. Clayton and Ryan and other people who were holding Mad Shark's flag at the time claimed to not even looked through all of it. I have myself not been through from start to finish, even, because it's almost 6.5 pages long. The document itself is not 6.5 pages of a long rant. He actually put my message that I sent to him on the 5th and replied to it piece by piece. In regular Mad Shark fashion, he elevates himself up while talking down on me. At first it would seem like this is some grand debunk, and I actually had plans to debunk the debunking, but being that Mad Shark is no longer with us, there is a little point in doing so. This might be a letdown to some of you, but trust me, I ain't sitting here for 30 minutes and picking apart a shitpost. However, I can break down the main arguments of the document itself. And even the main argument we've already gone through, because it's about why Mad Shark's moderator was removed, which he claimed was for my personal reason, and that I personally had something against him that he wanted me to admit. Had he, however, had his moderator removed for personal reasons, there would have been no discussion, and I would not have wasted time on finding something to happen like he claims I did. The second big part of the document brings up why Panda was made a moderator and a head moderator. How could she be a better candidate than Clayton, Don, Esto, PMH1? Was I really only after some head mod tits, yeah? Clayton, who today is an admin, you would think would prove Mad Shark's point here, but at the time he did almost as much as Mad Shark himself, and we're always part of these things. One of Mad Shark's arguments previous to this document was actually why Clayton's moderator wasn't removed while his own was. But now in this document the argument has gotten kind of flipped around, which yeah, and Don is a good person. I think we can all agree on that. But a good moderator is questionable. This one also kinda proved itself when Mad Shark got in on an alt account after being banned. Don was in the same channel as him, talking to him, despite having multiple people typing to him that he should ban Mad Shark. He didn't. Estogamo may not be familiar to most of y'all, but he would be an admin if he was more active. I've had several talks with him already, but he has refused my offer because he cannot commit to the scale that the rest of us can. So he was already out of the question for being a head moderator. PMH was at the time not very active. He studied in another town, and he only has his computer in like some house where he's only at for certain months, and he's away for long periods. His first real involvement in month was the vote on Mad Shark's ban, by the way. When it comes to this in particular about these 4 moderators, I kinda expect people to know this already. Especially if somebody claims to have been a veteran of FTG for many years. I feel like this isn't something I should have to explain to anybody. This is known facts, to be fucking honest with you. The reason Panda became moderator to begin with was actually through Gravy, because he asked me about it. Gravy was the one that approached me about this and asked if I could make her moderator, as she wanted to help out. So, if anything, making her a moderator was pretty much a guy-to-guy favor, if you know what I mean. A thing to keep in mind as well is that even though me and Panda are homies today, back then we weren't and had not talked that much yet. As for head moderator, I can honestly say that the whole head part was not my idea. I actually never liked the head roles to begin with. Same with head recruitment officer, like fucking get out of here. It was actually to begin with Cookie that said that we needed one. So I made this kind of judgment on the people we have as moderators at the moment, and I kinda came to the conclusion that they were not ready to be given such a role. And to begin with, since this was not my plan even, I had even less ideas for what a head moderator was supposed to do. When I left the Discord, I was actually in the middle of making the actual guidelines for how this system that I did not plan for was gonna work after what Cookie suggested. It was also clear that during the recent minor dramas most moderators had been fully idle and not done anything. In cases of Clayton, he had even instead been involved with causing it. It was also at this point very clear to me that over the years most of us had grown too attached to each other, friendship being our bigger weakness. Very few of us, if any, can completely let go of our friendship to do what's right for the community. I have even on multiple occasions been pointed out for this because people like Stargate and Joker, they leave their admin spot and I allow them back in because I've known them for 10 years, I trust them. But if somebody like Steve who's been there for like 2 weeks does that, I mean obviously I'm not gonna be like, yeah, we put you back as admin. But basically Panda did not share these attachments with the staff or the members at the time, which made me kind of lean towards that, yeah, this is probably the only outcome I can really see. It's not the best idea and it's far from perfect, but it was what I went with. It's also been mentioned in FTG History Part 3 that I apparently have a simping history. So in it was the one who was voted into staff. It was apparently my doing, and despite that it was one of our democratic elections. The second part of simping history would be Panda and her head moderator. I think we should probably bring up all the males I've cut slack over the years and add a gay simping history list, huh? I think that would outnumber the female simping history with 45-2. One of the other big arguments was that Madshark and others were externally trying to influence the community. I have afterwards found out about Google documents, other discords, where these things actually happened, both from Madshark himself and from people who supposedly knew about this. I only really had a hunch about that something like this was going on, because it was more true than I actually thought, and Madshark has actually name-dropped a lot of people that supposedly knew that the attack was coming on the 6th of June and they didn't tell me about it. I've actually double-checked with these people and they have actually confessed. Another big argument was that I didn't want any transparency on the staff meetings and decisions, and because of all of that, all this happened. I'm pretty sure this was put in as a troll, because if we could have full transparency, I would definitely push for it. But the problem is that nobody else in the staff wants this. People want stuff to be a little bit hidden. People want something to be discussed between the staff before it's let out. And to give you all some insight, the admin chat that we have on the Discord, it had about 5 messages before BG3 kicked off. And it's been there since 2016, so you can probably, sum that up in your head, yeah. And also remember when I tried to make the mod log public? Everybody was for it and it happened. A day later, Panda openly complained about it, and all of you changed your minds, so I had to have a vote to hide the mod log again. But oh, that's right, I'm the simp, right? Another kinda big argument is the whole racetrack versus faker thing, but since both are permanently banned, I think this argument kinda falls flat on us both. Another kinda minor thing is that I've noticed is about Little Cookie, as Madshark stated that she has never talked in our Discord before more than 1 to 3 messages in 3 years, before he started making fun of her, and also claimed that Stargate and Clayton backed him up on this one. But when searching our Discord, it reveals the truth, and even Stargate talking to her. And this is one of those things anybody could search, so most of the rest of the document is only to poke fun at me personally or overanalyze things I've said and making a big deal out of them with personal arguments mixed in. You can read the whole document for yourself if you really wanna. As I'm writing this script right now, it's most likely the last time I close it down. I will maybe look back at it in the future, But let's get back to reality now. So, the 6th of June, Skill leaves the Discord, pushed beyond my limits and ignored by the staff. Minor thing to note is that I did not look at this document at all at the time, as I already suspected what it was. It's also said that I was taking a vacation. It's probably somewhere in the news channel, go up and check it. Yeah. Madshark did claim, however, that he knew that the staff were loyal to me and they were gonna allow me back in power when I chose to return. I was, however, sure that a staff meeting were to take place the same day and they would decide to ban Madshark. And from what I was told, that was what the immediate staff meeting was about. So for a day it was pretty calm. Then the next day I received messages from Abers, Gravy and Steve, and that suddenly the others had changed their minds about this. All three of these were actually planning to leave, so I had to break my vacation and come in and attend this second staff meet. I was kind of surprised, as I had been chased out of my own community, but when coming back in I was also blamed for causing it to happen. I had at this point followed the staff's wishes and barely taken my own actions, and that had brought all this to happen. And rather than banning Mad Shark, they were now talking about implementing things that Mad Shark had been proposing. And they were spinning a big tale about how this was eventually gonna get Mad Shark banned because he had to agree to an ultimatum, and they said that I could have him banned right then and there if I wished, so they put it as a personal fucking decision on me. Like, what the fuck, guys? Seriously? I of course agreed to the thing they had been suggesting instead, as I already knew it was not gonna work at all, and after this meeting I actually didn't really have any plans to return at all at first. If they want the community to burn, they can have it while it's on fire. In the days of my vacation there was actually not a whole lot of members that messaged me. Out of them it was Hellfire, Faker and Gecko. They were like the main ones. None of the others that have been with us for a long time messaged me, other than like Don, yeah. Out of the staff, Cookie, Abers and Steve were the ones that messaged me the most. At this stage I actually began to plan what to do, and it would have been my most controversial idea ever. I was to return as scheduled, but bring an ultimatum to the staff. I had a list of demands that I actually don't have anymore, but basically it heavily affected the current toxicity that was building up in the community. If the staff would not meet these demands, I would break FTG off from 42CDO. In case this sounds like the ideas of a madman, it was actually suggested from many people that didn't like how the staff was too docile in the current situation. But this is far from where things would end. FTG would be active in BG3 as well and have our own line and everything. And there were actual real plans to manipulate the downfall of 42CDO and force them into submission. If this sounds impossible and unreal, don't forget, I know our flaws very well and how to exploit them. I had enough staff and loyal members to actually pull this off. Eventually 42CDO would be forced into negotiations that would see certain members not being allowed to join, certain members would be put on trial for their involvement in the recent dramas and would have it used against them. To say the least, it would have been a real shit show and would have been worthy of its own FTG history video for sure. And in the event of all of this failing, there was actually negotiation plans to negotiate FTG back into 42CDO. The only end result would have been that I would have left for good, yeah. The main reason this wasn't pulled off though is actually pretty simple. For one thing, a lot of innocent people would have been made to choose a side, and this is in many ways exactly what Joe did to us back in 2012. And I'd hate to be that person. There was also a great deal of risk with this drama because it could weaken both FTG and 42CDO, so perhaps both communities would be unable to continue, and after a while people would have gone off to other clans. Most importantly, people like Stargate had worked very hard to make our BG3 section grand, and I would be a very bad friend to do something like that to him. Some days of my 1 week vacation, I actually had pretty much made up my mind to not return unless I was called back. I knew that things were gonna unfold without me being there, so I could just wait out the disaster. I quietly rejoined after a week and was given back my ownership permissions. I was actually interested to see what had been going around this week when I had been away. Obviously there was a lot of role changes in favor of Mad Shark's demands, which was kinda weird to see. Keep in mind that some of these permission changes caused issues down the line that can be found still to this day on our Discord. Good job guys, I was gone for like a week. The admin chat is what shocked me the most, however. I was pretty sure there was gonna be some talk about how I had been treated, but no. There was, however, on the day that I had left, so had Panda, and the staff's main concern was to get Panda back. Yeah, I know, right? In my absence, the staff had also given in to other Mad Shark terms, as Mad Shark didn't like how somebody who was BG3 HQ could tell him off about not safe for work content that he had posted in the meme channel. It should be a moderator that does that, because BG3 HQ with more permissions should not go outside of the BG3 section. I'd actually love to hear how the staff didn't see this one through, but yeah. Cookie and Stargate also came up with a moderator system to replace the system where I could give whoever I wanted moderator. I didn't even know that was a system, but okay. But people had to apply for moderator positions and write applications. I was also told I should not confront Madshark about anything or try and solve anything. I should leave it up to somebody else. It's been a couple of years since this now, so I can probably get back to giving whoever I want moderator, yeah. But this also came with a cost for Madshark, however. It wasn't all in his favor. Like, this ultimatum had some terms he had to agree to. From what I was told, Stargate and or Cookie had a talk with Madshark where they explained this. Madshark, however, claims that did not happen, so I don't know, to be honest, yeah. He was to behave and not shitpost, not safe for work content and not spam. He was to make sure Racetrack didn't start behaving any worse and such too. He was to respect the rules, and he would be banned if he didn't comply with them. He was also said he was gonna apologize to Panda, as when they were making memes about me on that day, she was included in many of the simping related situations, so she felt targeted. This was all things that he had to follow, otherwise he would be banned on the basis that he was just looking for trouble or something like that. Most, if not all of you, know very well that this did not happen. It also left a sour taste for Madshark, though, that he wasn't picked to be a moderator again. After about 2 weeks, Panda brought up to Cookie that she had not received an apology yet. And from what I was told, Cookie and Stargate confronted Madshark about this, that he had not lived up to other parts of his deal. But he was in full denial over ever agreeing to any of this. Both Cookie and Stargate brought me into a small meeting where they revealed this to me. To me, it was obviously not a surprise, yeah. So here we were, and he had not lived up to his part of the deal, which should in all common sense mean he gets banned, but both of them were against it because it was late, and at that point in time, he had not done anything. And what if his buddies start spamming the Discord? It still kinda surprises me how Madshark knew exactly this, and even spoke openly about how we were only looking to find reasons to ban him. Also, a thing to point out is that Madshark should at this point been trying to piss off Cookie and Stargate. Instead, his main focus was on me, and in a lot of the messages he was making, he was low-key going at me or referencing me. There were a couple of times when I tried to make the staff see that we can't have it like this, guys. It eventually came down to an evening when Madshark had been spamming a lot, and Stargate confronted him and told him off that he needs to keep his act together, otherwise he will not remain in FTG. From what Don told me, it was a very wholesome night. I awoke a few hours after this, and obviously was not informed about this, so on the spot I made a decision that this was enough. I, after all, just saw a bunch of spam messages and even how Clayton had tried deleting all the spam. So I laid the ban on Madshark and on Jason as a precaution. It took a few hours before Madshark noticed, and one of his real-life friends sent this message. It was clear he was not just gonna accept this ban. His message in general is kind of interesting, however. Full info on our meetings. How personal this is. Okay. Filled with blind rage. Yeah, right. If he had full info on our meetings, he would know how this wasn't personal to me and how I wasn't filled with blind rage. I think it's fair to say whoever was feeding him information was lying. If there was somebody feeding him information, that is. But you can always, confess in my DMs or take it up with my secretary Don, and he'll send me a message or 5 about it. Yeah. As I was at work the whole day, Madshark had plenty of time to prepare to make this his grand final stand. Starsap confronted me when I came home, as Madshark has swayed him to his side. I'm sure he thinks he took me by surprise, but the moment he refused to go on voice and wanted to have me explain on text, I knew he wasn't on my side. You little bitch boy. But I still played into the trap, as it made me seem more innocent. And if I'm gonna be fairly honest here, had the BG3 section been mine, Starsap would have been banned permanently right here. Because he was swayed very easy to Madshark's side, and I know it became a shock to everybody when he betrayed us 1.5 years later and leaked FTG private logs. I mean, It was pretty much a time bomb waiting to go off. I received multiple messages from people about things Madshark had told them about me. He had typed around to who even knows who about that I was a cook, and I got the information first from Aglox. He continued to create new accounts and join in and spam this message. Several staff and moderators helped me out with banning these accounts. There was also a few staff and moderators that kinda avoided getting involved. Got my eye on you guys. Eventually, late in the night, I was told the talk Stargate had with him the other day before, and I didn't know about this. So it actually, believe it or not, made a lot of sense why Madshark acted like he did that day. However, had Madshark played his cards right and not said a thing, the staff would have been more in his favor, because to many of them this is when they really started opening their eyes about Madshark. It was revealed to me that some in staff were actually working on a Discord to break 42CDO off from FTG. Rather than facing the problems, they were gonna wall themselves off completely and leave it all to play out on the FTG Discord. In a way, it would stop the BG3 section to be affected by the drama, as people had left already because of the drama. Since I myself had similar plans but in reverse, I couldn't really blame the staff, now could I? This was also to be a big secret before it was put into motion, as some of the staff were afraid how Madshark was gonna react if he found out. However, I was to have a talk with Madshark and settle things. Don was to be there and mediate, because pretty much at this point we needed to have somebody to oversee the whole thing. It was probably one of the best and most wholesome talks I've ever had. Most people were probably expecting we were gonna go at each other. I was even told beforehand that if he started going at me I should just disconnect and leave him banned. But the very opposite happened, and the talk was actually very good and he got unbanned. I at this stage actually felt sorry for him, because despite that him and me were fine, I knew that the rest of the people were starting to open their eyes and his days were numbered. I took a huge step back from adminning and moderating at this point, because I knew already what had been set in motion, and I was ready to watch the community burn, to make them all realize how wrong they had all been. Conveniently, people also wanted a politics channel at this point in time, which I knew would contribute a lot to this. Normally I would never allow such a channel, because it's having one is basically asking for problems. And there is also entire gaming communities that have been brought down by channels like this. I mean, just take a look in ours, it's a fucking shit show, am I right? There were many people that had been on the sidelines avoiding to get involved in this drama, but it was their turn now. As you most likely expect, it didn't take long before things to spiral out of hand. I was expecting Madshark to last at least half a year before he got banned. After all these people that had been so judgmental towards me and my ideas, and they were probably more suited for dealing with this. Turns out they weren't though, because on the 11th of August Madshark was banned for the final time after posting gored dogs in the politics channel and threatening moderators. I was also told afterwards that there was a lot of other things leading up to this. Something about Madshark spamming some channel when they were having their holy D&D event or something like that. I know that he was messing around in the Conan channel. Something about Racetrack being a shad, and I don't know. All moderators and admins were in agreement of this, and at this point things actually started to become a little more clear to me. Clayton, who had been the first person to bring up that the ban was needed, said that he was done defending Madshark, and this gave a lot of closure to me, since I had been called paranoid and such for suspecting that something was going on behind the scenes. I spent a great amount of time deleting all Madshark selfies at his request in the selfie channel. He did make a few appearances on alt accounts, almost immediately started go at Clayton some of the times. In 2022, a couple of months ago, he actually messaged me to be unbanned. I took the case forward to the staff, but it was turned down. At the same time, I was in a Discord voice call with Madshark where we talked through this entire drama, and a lot of post information was revealed to me that I didn't know about before. I know that most people have ever since 2020 demonized him, and I think that's kinda wrong. It's also noted that a lot of newer members, they basically see Madshark as the biggest villain of all times, but I think that's also wrong. The final outcome of this drama had mixed results. As Madshark and Racetrack got permanently banned, it can notice that the amount of moderation and need for moderators has dropped to almost nothing, but it's also been an increase in bands and how the staff views people that cause trouble in general, like Frankish Empire and many of the 66th members who used to be in here and could cause issues. They were all banned permanently without much thought put into it. There is in general a quicker response to problems, and they rarely get dragged out. I was very negatively affected by this drama, however, because there was a lot of times when people did not come to my aid or did not seem to care. At this point, I had been doing this for 9 years, and very few fucks were given when I left the disc. What is interesting to note, however, is that I actually have a hard time in general to find people that want to talk about this drama. You guys would actually be surprised to know that the only two people that I can talk about this drama with without them being uncomfortable is Mad Shark and Panda. The three of us, including Stargate, were most likely the most affected by this drama. If either of us wouldn't want to talk about it, it would make sense. Like, I'm not mad of any of you if that's what you guys think. I just think it's weird. Like, I'm not expecting an apology from anybody, but you know, my DMs are open. Here's my PayPal. Get at it. That's it for this drama, however. Now we can get back to the last half of BG3. Now, you would probably think, pretty much because of the drama that has been described so far, that it was the end of us and it would split the community apart. It was close, but we actually thrived in BG3 at the same time and were one of the more successful clans in there. Mostly due to Stargate running the show and the staff he picked. They got the job done and kept the BG3 section running despite all the drama. I had for the most part gone inactive since June the 6th. I only really started coming back towards the end of July. At least I think. It's kinda cloudy. But a very big thing in all of this is that I was actually fully inactive and the section carried on without me, and that was something that hadn't happened in many years. So it was kind of interesting to see. Another aspect of BG3 we have not touched upon yet is the sea battles or sea wars or however you want to call them. But it was a ship-on-ship kind of like battle. There was some beta concepts that existed in old BG2, although it was very laggy maps. In BG3 this art had been perfected and the ships had working cannons and destructible hulls, and once you had the controls down for the ship and the cannons, it made for an epic sea battle. We were obviously very good at this at the start, since it was a new concept at the time, and we have always been a kind of a unpredictable crew, yeah. So in the early stages of Sea Wars, we dominated hard. I probably have a video of this, so pause and go check it out. I'll wait. There was also something developed called Sky Wars, which is the same concept but with airships. Those fights could also get pretty intense, but it usually came down to whoever hit who with a fireball cannon, because that was kind of on OP. Unless you captured all the flags. If the map had flags, sometimes it didn't. The scrim maps also had a lot of variety in comparison to BG2. In BG2, 95% of the scrims happened on Town Guard. And sure, in the beginning it was kinda like that too, but eventually more scrim maps were added in, and to be fair, many of them were great, but some got old after a while, like the rugby maps. Sure, it was a great concept at the start, but when the 5th rugby map rolled out, it was kinda like, eh. Some BG2 maps that got converted that were never seen as really good maps in BG2, they actually were great in BG3 and offered a lot of change to the standard map formula, and actually added some nostalgic factors for some of us. There was also mapping contests to add new maps into rotation, like BG Wrecked and such, which were all very welcome additions, because it's a game that very easily gets stuck on like 5 maps for years. The siege maps that had really just been a concept in BG2 were brought in fully in BG3, and often there were servers with rotations such as siege only. The line battle maps also got a bit of an upgrade, but it felt kinda like every new map that was added for line battle was actually a converted BG2 map. Sometimes I could see it too, and other times we had to turn to BG historians such as Yak X, who would recognize older maps. Many maps from BG2 were also converted and used for the multi-clan. As for size of our line, we pretty much broke the record from BG2, which we at most had like 25 people, and the exact numbers are not known Not to me at least, maybe ask somebody else. Yeah. But I know that we in some cases had well over 30 people at most. As for our line battle record, we beat pretty much any other clan there was that could match our numbers. And on the 25th of April 2020, we also managed to beat the 29th again for the first time since 2012. We went on to beat them a few more times, yeah. We also ended up winning one of the line battle leagues and was step up from BG2, where we were disqualified for using our signature move of splitting into two lines. Yeah, in BG2 this was considered unfair and we had too much control of our lines. Well, we all know the clans back then were just bad. Whoops, did I just say that out loud? There were also a battle for the colonies thingy, which we took part in. I have all 4 parts recorded on my YouTube channel, and strangely part 1 of those videos is actually my most viewed BG3 video. I'm not exactly sure why, but it could be that it was featured on the Steam community page for BG3. It's also the worst out of one of those videos, to be honest. Stargate also did a lot of inner clan events for the members, such as the War Games line battles, and we even had like FTG scrimt tournaments. I know I was in Soul's team one of the times. He's a beast, yeah. When Joker suddenly went inactive in November 2020, Stargate took the liberty to change our name from FortiCDO to FTG, which was something I'd wished from the start, but Joker had always been against it. To be honest, the name FortiCDO has kind of a bad taste for most of us. If you don't understand, there is about 2 videos that I already uploaded in the series that goes a bit deeper on the subject, yeah. So go touch them with your toes. We also played a lot of CSGO and even had tournaments. Teams were created to try and balance the skills accordingly to players' ranks and such. Prizes were also given out after each match, depending on different kinds of achievements like most kills, most bomb plants, things like that. Despite that many will disagree about this, but some teams were obviously more stacked than others. Often this was also joked about, and I think that was because people kinda knew that some teams were meant to be weaker than others, but they said it was balance and all that. And sometimes new members were added to teams, which wasn't a problem until that team won over another team, or something like that. There was also people who were invited from outside of FTG, that said that they were Gold Novas, but they played like Eagles. Kinda suspicious if you ask me, yeah. And before anybody starts to say that this argument will backfire on me since I invited Faded and he's a global, the big difference is I always said he was a global and he played like one and said he was one himself, so... There was also a case of somebody who was invited and was playing on a Smurf account, even though there was no logical reason for it at all, but everybody was just like, oh, why are you guys pointing out that? But yeah, all in all though, most people enjoyed this little break from BG and the CSGO times when people had matches and such. It was obviously when everybody got together and everybody was watching somebody stream. It was like, oh, who's gonna win? Oh. It was good times, people liked it. I actually put a lot of skins into the prize pool and even made skins for all the members on my own team. A lot of people were salty about this because their team didn't do that. Probably something you should take up with your team captain, yeah? I don't remember exactly how the tournament ended because it was very confusing in a way. But to find out, go to the CSGO discussion right now and ask, and some CSGO admin will probably hook you right up to the results, yeah. The CSGO pugs also became very popular on our Discord, and still to this day pugs happen every now and then, but back in the days, feels weird calling it back in the days, but back then there could be like 3 or 5 pugs in a row, and yeah, it was good times. I can't say that I played many of the pugs though, since I'm more for the unboxing aspect of this game, yeah. We actually went back to NW a few times and attended events, and it was a big nostalgia factor for many of us. Also because we had a lot more people that we could bring in and have in these events. It was a big nostalgia for all of us, except for Joker, because he instead went to Merc for the 29th, yeah. Go to his profile and type something about that to him, yeah. Minecraft was also kind of a big deal at some point, because we had a server and a lot of people from other BG3 clans came in to fight and such, even though they got swooped like 3D, yeah. I wasn't really part of this that much though, because I was usually never given admin to be able to use creative and such. Instead, when I played, I was always bullied by Steve, who they always gave admin. Yeah. Most people generally enjoyed this and went around digging for diamonds and offline farming items to fight. Yeah. And there was also, yeah, you remember the Kiddo Starts app from earlier. He got his buddies in there, and they were apparently hackers, and they even tried to hack Drake's Minecraft account, the guy who was running the server. We also had random game nights and such, where we all would get some free game and play it together on a Saturday or Sunday evening. Zombie Master, Zombie Panic Source, also some board game simulator that I can't remember the name of. We still do this to this day sometimes, and sometimes Clayton organizes some EU4 event that all of them take part in and end their turn, yeah. But that's all I can say about that, because we can't have a whole chapter about turn-based strategy games now, can we? And now I know that you're all probably thinking, but when are you gonna wrap up BG3? Oh yeah, actually, let's do that now. Yeah. BG3 was a rare example of a section that never fully went inactive, as our previous sections had. It was more or less decided that this is enough. The main popularity of BG3 did slowly decline in the later parts of 2021, because the general environment in BG3 declined as well. We still to the very end managed to have good attendance, and the few times we attended multi-clan after our official end in BG3, we actually managed to bring a good attendance there as well, all the times. We did have a small amount of members that left us before the end, but the circumstances surrounding it are very cloudy. People breaking off from us because of disagreements is common. I mean, it's happened a few times already. But basically it was revealed to me that Hawk, he was having some people's selfies, and although this sounds very creepy, there is actually a really logical explanation to it. Back when TeamSpeak was a thing, when you shared files in channels, they had to be downloaded to your computer for you to view them, so this is actually how I had a picture of Vader's pubes saved on my computer in some folder. Random shit, I know. But it was a rumor that Hawk had leaked these pictures to people, which is kind of a vague statement in itself, because if this was the case, you could just raise the alarm and he would have been banned on the spot if somebody could have provided us with evidence of anything happening at all. But it all came crashing down one day when Hawk joked about leaking selfies of Hellfire. This was a joke, and I'm not gonna act like it's a good joke. It was a terrible joke, and we could slap Hawk's balls all day long about it. But the matter of fact still remained. Hawk hadn't leaked anything. But a few members banded together and left. They joined the 14th, former 29th, and was in a scrim team of somebody who actively was leaking selfies of Faker and Sheepy every day on many discords. And thanks to the Epic Game Store that gave out free Nitro to suckle some of you into using their fucking stupid launcher, these selfies were actually turned into emojis so they could be spammed even more efficiently around on discords. And many members, they had left because of this whole idea that Hawk had leaked selfies, but they were completely unaware that they were hanging out with the person who was actually leaking people's selfies. There are actual delusional people that still to this day believe that we are in the wrong about this. They will take their lack of knowledge to their graves, yeah. On the 18th of October 2021, Stargate posted this announcement to detail our departure from BG3. Pause the video and go look at it. No, I'm just joking, here it is, yeah, but you probably need to pause to be able to read it anyway. BG3 was never meant to be a huge section, and the fact that Bannerlord's launch failed and COVID-19 hit, it was a recipe for making it happen. Stargate and the other staff played a huge role in making it work. Most likely this wouldn't have been able to be pulled off without them. Unlike many of the other clans in BG3, we would have existed still to this day without BG3, though at probably very reduced numbers. At the same time, it's fair to say that we have gained a lot of members and fame for partaking in BG3, so I don't regret our time in BG3 or anything like that. I do though have a bit of a rant, if you all excuse me for a second. I mean, you better, it's my fucking video, you simps. Anyway. In the menu for BG3, we have actually been removed from the list of clans when we decided to go beyond BG3. Ironically, the 15th are still here, despite they merged into us, am I right? Wait, what happens if I click on this flag? Oh shit, I can't go backwards. Help? One reset later. So yeah, Anyways, we're not mentioned here, and under special thanks none of the testers are listed, which I was one of the more active ones in the testing sessions, yeah. But Steve and Gecko, are these even our guys? And why are they here? Oh, look at this. The 3D, the 29th, and the 12th Infantry. Oh, yeah. True prophets of our time, am I right? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I would like to report a bug, yeah. Send that shit, yeah. Obviously, we're not respected to the level we should be, but that's fine, because that's it for BG3, and I can move on with the video. After all, I'm only about 788 rows into the script, and I have about 500 left. No, I'm just kidding, but you get it, yeah. Well, we now have gone through from 2010 to 2021 pretty much. I even found this old announcement here I made in 2019 about making these videos, and as you guys can probably tell by this date, BG3 was still kinda new and the big drama hadn't kicked off yet, so yeah. I guess after it kicked off I more accepted the fact that I'm gonna have to go through them all, yeah. I know there are people that wish I left the dramas out of the videos completely. Trust me, I have played with that thought, but that would also be like telling an incomplete story. I could literally summarize our existence in a sentence then. We started as a BG2 clan, then we went to NW, then we went back to BG2, then we went back to NW, then we went to BG3, the end. Yeah, nobody would want to watch that, but trust me, I would rather put focus on our accomplishments rather than the dramas, but this is reality and there are no happy endings. Because we don't offer massage, but if we did, yeah. I made this diagram to kind of give you guys a perspective on our activity over the years. It's obviously not 100% accurate, and the D&D era only really exists because at that time it was impossible to start an organized game, since a majority of our members went to watch their D&D characters. They spent weeks making a book of backstory about be killed off in a few minutes. Every Saturday. It may seem like I'm bitching about it, and you're fucking right I am. They always complained about it, and whenever I suggested we should try launching a section, they were like, no, whoa bro, we got D&D then. A short session is usually 9 hours every Saturday, because we need to prepare on the Friday as well, so it's also off limits, and then we need at least 4 days after the session to discuss why our characters died. I'm obviously over exaggerating this, but you guys don't know that yet. Anyways, the rest of the diagram is kind of accurate. It shows how we were on the decline, but then skyrocketed beyond to what everybody expected to ever achieve again. There is obviously nobody who expected BG3 to take off like it did and make our community grow like it did. FTG has been a bit of a journey for me, and I'm sure it has been for many others. I mean, I was 21 when it started, and today I'm 33. It has been going on for so long that it's actually become a big part of my life as a whole. I have been part of many other communities and even big giveaway sites, as I mentioned in part 4, but none of them have gone on as long as FTG, and unlike for example all the BG3 clans, we have always been here, both in TeamSpeak and later on Discord. We have almost been hanging out and playing games and such almost every day. It is satisfying, but at the same time a bit sad. We've watched a lot of fellow clans, communities, even rivals, rise and fall, while we always remained. In a way, I have for a majority of the time been seen as the leader, owner, founder, simp admin for many years, even though I really never wanted any of that. I was taken into staff pretty quickly, and even being one of the bigger boys in the central committee we used to have until like 2014. I would never consider myself a founder either. Sure, to become a community and switch from the terrible 4.2 CDO to FTG was initially my idea. In 2019, many of the other kiddos did actually step up, and I think that is for the better. I'm not good at what I do, if you know what I mean. I've always seen myself kinda like the mad god Sheogorath from the Elder Scrolls. I think it's also an opportune time to thank all you guys who have been with us over the years. Even if some of you only spent like a short amount of time with us, the people that do take part in this is what make it all work in the end. I'm especially thankful for the people who have been staff, moderators, forum admins, recruitment officers, and whatever big role we've had over the years. Head of security. I could definitely name drop you all individually, but it would make the video 2 hours longer. I think I said this earlier, but you guys know who you are already. I'm sure all members and former members agree that this isn't the best place ever, but it is home for some of us. Yeah, I'm usually pretty bad at endings, so I don't know what more to say. Wait, what's that? Oh yeah, we need to conclude the wheel, don't we? Yeah, the motherfucking wheel. Ladies and gentlemen, the wheel has now been spinning for days, and now we're gonna stop it to see what we will get. Oh, look at that! Panda won all the knives. Good job, yeah!